Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail is a memoir by Cheryl Strayed that tells the story of her solo hike on the Pacific Crest Trail in the mid-1990s. After suffering a series of painful losses and feeling lost in her life, Cheryl decides to hike more than 1,000 miles from the southern border of California up toward Oregon and Washington. She carries little experience, a heavy pack, and deep emotional wounds. What begins as a physical challenge becomes an emotional and spiritual journey of healing, self-discovery, forgiveness, and growth. Cheryl's story is about facing pain, learning to trust herself, and finding strength she did not know she had. Cheryl grew up in Minnesota and then in Seattle, raised by parents who loved her deeply. Her mother, Bobby, was strong, warm, and full of life. Her father also worked hard for their family. Cheryl had a close relationship with her mother, who encouraged her to be brave and creative. But tragedy struck when Cheryl was in her 20s. Her mother died suddenly from lung cancer. Bobby's death shattered Cheryl's world. Grief, guilt, and confusion overwhelmed her. In the years that followed, Cheryl struggled to cope. She rebelled against her pain, made choices that hurt her, and lost her sense of direction. By her late 20s, Cheryl was divorced, using drugs, and drifting in multiple directions without clear purpose. One day, she came across an old map and a book about the Pacific Crest Trail, and she felt a surprising pull toward this long and lonely path. The idea of hiking the PCT alone begins as a fantasy, but over time it takes shape as a real plan. Cheryl realizes that she might be able to face her grief and find healing by walking hundreds of miles through mountains, deserts, forests, and wild terrain. She decides to attempt the hike with the hope that it might change her life. When her journey begins, Cheryl is unprepared in many ways. She has never been on a long backpacking trip. She knows little about trail life, and she carries a pack that is much too heavy. Her gear is new, unfamiliar, and overwhelming. Even her boots are uncomfortable. Friends and strangers alike doubt her plan, warning her about danger, loneliness, and the difficulty of the terrain. Some think she's foolish. Some think she's brave. Cheryl does not know if she's either. She simply feels that she must try. In the first section of the trail, Cheryl suffers physically in ways she had not anticipated. Her pack weighs more than it should, and every step feels like a punishment. Her feet blister, her muscles ache, and the heat of the desert sun drains her energy. When she hikes with others, people she meets on the trail, they seem skilled, experienced, and confident. She envies them. She feels ashamed of her lack of preparedness. She wonders if she will be able to continue. Still, she hikes on because turning back feels like giving up on herself. With each mile, she struggles and learns. Her pack becomes lighter as she sheds unnecessary items, and her body begins to acclimate to the rhythm of walking day after day. Cheryl's journey is not only physical. Memories of her mother and her mother's death constantly swirl in her mind. She thinks of Bobby's laughter, her strength, and her love. She also remembers the last painful days of her mother's illness when Cheryl was unable to save her and felt helpless. Guilt and sorrow surge through her as she hikes alone, and at times she feels suffocated by grief. At other moments, she feels her mother's presence guiding her steps, as though Bobby is walking beside her. As the miles pass, Cheryl meets many people on the PCT, fellow hikers, trail angels, and locals who offer help and kindness. Some are seasoned backpackers with years of experience who instantly understand life on the trail. Others are first-timers like Cheryl, battling their own fears and doubts. Some she hikes with for a few days, and others she never sees again, yet each person leaves an imprint on her journey. There are moments of laughter, joy, and camaraderie, but also moments of conflict, loneliness, and disappointment. In the wilderness, Cheryl experiences both deep connection and intense solitude. She learns that being alone does not mean being lonely, and that strength is often found in the quiet spaces within. At several points, Cheryl faces serious hardship. In the desert heat of Southern California, she runs out of water and feels close to collapse. She feels hopeless, yet a stranger appears and gives her life-saving help. In the mountains of the Sierra Nevada, snow blocks the trail, and she must make difficult choices about when to push forward and when to wait. Her body suffers through blisters, bruises, and exhaustion, but her spirit remains stubborn and determined. Throughout her journey, Cheryl reflects on her life before the trail, her relationships, her mistakes, her divorce, her drug use, and the grief that led her here. She wonders if she could ever find peace and meaning after so much loss. She questions God, fate, and whether suffering has a purpose. She thinks about love, intense, painful, and fleeting, and what it means to be connected to others while being responsible for herself. The trail becomes a metaphor for life. There will be hard days and beautiful ones, days filled with hope and days filled with despair, and the only way forward is one step at a time. With each mile, Cheryl grows stronger. She learns to hike efficiently, how to care for her feet, how to manage her food and supplies, and how to navigate difficult terrain. But more importantly, she learns to listen to her body, her heart, and her mind. She discovers that being alone in the wilderness does not weaken her, but rather teaches her resilience. She learns that pain can create depth, that grief can soften into acceptance, and that love never truly dies, but changes form. The physical landscapes she passes become symbolic of her inner transformation. The barren desert represents the emptiness she felt after her mother's death. The steep, snowy passes of the Sierra Nevada mirror her emotional peaks and valleys. Forests of whispering trees echo the voices of memory, and wide, open vistas remind her of possibility and renewal. Cheryl's narrative shifts between past and present, weaving together memories of her mother, her own mistakes, her hopes, and the physical steps she takes each day. In the small mountain towns along the trail, Cheryl receives care packages mailed by friends and family. These packages hold food and supplies, but they also contain notes of encouragement and love. Each time she returns to the trail after a break, she feels a little more confident, a little more capable, and a little more at peace. Cheryl's emotions are raw throughout the hike. She cries often and without shame. She laughs at absurd moments. She grows irritated, joyful, hopeful, and defeated sometimes in the same hour. She experiences moments of clarity and moments of confusion. The solitude of the trail teaches her to sit with her thoughts without distraction. She learns that avoidance does not heal pain. Confrontation, reflection, and acceptance do. As Cheryl hikes northward, her physical strength increases, but so does her emotional insight. She begins to understand that strength is not the absence of fear, but the courage to continue despite fear. She learns to let go of perfection and to embrace imperfection as a part of life. She sees beauty in unexpected places, a tiny flower growing in harsh soil, a stranger's genuine smile, the sound of wind through trees. These simple wonders remind her that life, even when painful, is full of beauty and possibility. Toward the end of her journey, Cheryl faces some of the most difficult terrain, including deep snow and treacherous paths. Her feet are battered and her body aches, but her mind has become resilient. She refuses to quit, not because she is fearless, but because she no longer wants to be defeated by fear. She feels connected to something larger than herself, the trail, the natural world, and the inner landscape she has carved through perseverance. When Cheryl reaches the northern end of her intended hike, near the Oregon border, she feels a profound sense of accomplishment. She has walked over 1,000 miles, faced her deepest fears, and carried the weight of her grief along every step. The trail has changed her in ways she couldn't have predicted. Though grief still lives in her heart, it is no longer a raw, burning pain, but something softened by time and understanding. The completion of her hike does not erase the past, but it gives Cheryl peace, perspective, and hope. She is no longer the person she was before the trail. She has learned to trust herself, to accept her flaws, and to honor her mother's memory through resilience and courage. She understands that life's journey is not about perfection, but about moving forward, learning from pain, and finding beauty even in struggle. By the time Cheryl leaves the trail, she feels a quiet strength inside her. She feels connected to the world and to the people she loves. She has walked through her darkest moments and emerged with a renewed sense of self. The trail didn't fix everything, but it helped her find a way to live with her pain and transform it into wisdom. Conclusion. Wild is a story about one woman's journey to heal her heart after loss, to discover her own capacity for strength, and to find herself in a world that can be both unforgiving and full of